delicious tavern meat. I'm blessed.
You've got mail.
Well, welcome back to Skyrim, where today we're continuing our investigation into the province's economy. I think that's the best way to sum it up. In the first video of this mini-series, we established the foundation for our analysis, so if you haven't watched it first, then you should. It's a pretty short video and it contains all the necessary information so that everything makes sense here, but if you don't have time for that, then quick recap. The septim is the currency used in the province. It's a commodity currency, meaning it's directly tied to the price of gold. There's some odd price discrepancies between things like raw ingredients and final products, as well as some weirdness when it comes to wages. More on that later. We also took a look at Skyrim's agricultural scene, examining the 14 farms scattered across the map and noting what each one produces. Today we're going to be continuing our look into Skyrim's economy, specifically all things service. Now, the service industry is defined as a business that does work for a customer and occasionally provides goods, but is not involved in manufacturing, which in Skyrim will mainly be things like healthcare and mercenary work. Now, healthcare in Skyrim, a world where you or anyone skilled in the magic of restoration can just restore people's health in a pretty quick and efficient manner. It's quite different than healthcare in our world. I mean, there's basically no hospitals in the entire province in the form that you and I know today. Instead, the closest thing we have to hospital is the Skyrim Temple of Kinnereth, located in Whiterun. The Temple of Kinnereth is both a place of worship and a clinic, which is actually pretty similar to how things worked back in the medieval ages in real life, where religious organizations would often have space in or near their temples to tend to or care for the ill. The implications that this has for the economy of Skyrim is that all healthcare, at least in Whiterun, is funded by donations and other income that the followers of Kinnereth receive. This does make healthcare essentially free for those in need, however, as mentioned earlier, not every city has such a facility, so if you're not lucky enough to be living in the city, but live, say, in some random shack in the middle of nowhere, you're basically out of luck, unless you A, know how to use restoration magic, which is relatively rare for the average individual, or B, you're either well enough supplied with potions of healing and disease cures, or you possess the alchemical knowledge to manufacture your own. I've been dreading discussing potions for a while now, mainly because they suffer from the exact same issue that sweet rolls do, but in the complete opposite directions, because whereas sweet rolls cost less as a final product than the sum of its parts, potions as a final product, even crappy potions, cost much, much, much more than the ingredients they're made of. As Dimitri137 pointed out in the comments, the Dragonborn is able to craft the Poison of Damage Magicka regen potion using just 2 ingredients, a blue butterfly wing and a blue mountain flower. These ingredients, as you can probably tell, aren't really valuable items by themselves, being only 4 gold base value. Hell, according to UESP, there are 1,739 blue mountain flower plants all around Skyrim, and if you want, you can get them entirely for free. And if you don't, they're also sold by basically all alchemists for a very, very low price. Likewise, butterfly wings are literally butterfly wings. Actual children can catch those, and they're basically everywhere. Now, somehow, the potion that can be made from these 2 ingredients is worth a base price of 241 gold. That is insane, and if we calculate the total profit, that's 5,925% profit. What are we doing here? And that's considering you don't just forage these ingredients yourself, mind you, and then use the alchemy table inside Arcadia's Cauldron completely free of charge. So you literally have the ability to make thousands from actual junk. However, this does require you to have some knowledge of alchemy. But not a lot. Even a novice alchemist can make these potions, but the insanely high cost of these potions has a secondary effect. Not only can they make an alchemist exceedingly wealthy, they can also make the average person buying them exceedingly broke. In the first video, I posed the question, how can anyone afford anything? And I think before we go through the rest of the service industry, we should take a few moments to try and answer that specifically. How much does a farmer, the backbone of society, make? To answer this, let's take a very average farm and try to deduce the gross income that it would produce per year. Battleborn Farm will be our case study because it's fairly average, and it's centrally located near Whiterun. Okay, first thing to note, it grows 18 leeks, 6 wheat, and 5 gourds. Now, the value of a single harvest, given that Skyrim seems to have magical soil that always yields a successful crop, would be 18 plus 30 plus 5, for a total of 53 gold. Now, we know that these crops regrow every 3 days, so per year that would be a total of 6,413 gold, assuming that you sell every crop and don't keep anything for yourself. But you probably are, to not starve to death. So let's say you keep 10% of the harvest for you and your family, bringing the total value of that harvest, that is to be sold, down to about 5,772 gold. So, that's, It's not too bad. That's pretty decent, I guess. I mean, assuming you're living on the farm and you're a family of 3, let's try to calculate your monthly expenses. As we previously acknowledged, you're pretty self-sufficient in regards to food, but you're still probably going to need things like clothes and tool repairs maybe once a month. So according to my pretty rudimentary calculations based on the prices of basic clothes and tools, you'll be spending around 25 gold a month on that per person. Next, as a farmer, you own your own land, so you're not paying any rent, but you will probably have to keep some maintenance supplies like nails, which would come out to another 10 or so gold per month. Finally, there's going to be the miscellaneous expenses, such as health potions, which are pretty costly as mentioned earlier. Assuming you're a farmer and don't experience much combat, you're probably going to be fine buying 2 potions of minor healing every month for a family of 3, for a total of 50 gold. Now, this is literally the bare minimum for just staying alive, and it comes out to about 1,620 gold a year, leaving you with 3,246 gold to spend on non-necessary goods and services. Now, just for fun, let's try to calculate the purchasing power parity of the septim and the US dollar. This isn't going to be super accurate, but it's going to be pretty interesting. So if we take bread as the good being used for a comparison, we know that a loaf costs 2 gold in Skyrim. Meanwhile, the average price of loaf in the US is $3.63. Using the purchasing power parity formula then, we find that a septim would be roughly equivalent to about $1.81 in terms of its purchasing power, which means that the 3,246 leftover gold you'd have would be equal to about 5,881 US dollars. So, upon first glance, that doesn't really sound great. This would place Skyrim between 146th and 147th position in countries ranked by GDP per capita adjusted for purchasing power parity, putting it between Cameroon and Myanmar on the scale. So, don't forget, this isn't that bad by the standards of a medieval country going through a civil war as we speak. And it honestly seems like the economy in regards to how much one makes and how much one spends actually seems to line up surprisingly well. Not gonna lie, these numbers all seem either outrageously low or outrageously high at first, but they're honestly a lot more sensible than I originally expected them to be. Now, for the last section of this video, I wanted to go over the mercenary system, but after looking into it, I think this is one of the only places where there really is no way to explain it, aside from chalking it up to gameplay limitations. Someone in the comments pointed out that a 500 gold wage for a mercenary is in line with the real-life medieval economy. And also, this would make sense in the game, which is what matters to us, considering in-game armor prices and such, but big if. That's only if this was a 500 gold wage paid monthly, as opposed to a one-time flat fee. But seeing as it's not that, it literally makes no sense whatsoever. I'd put that comment that brought up this video on screen, but I literally can't find it anywhere. Sorry. If I do, I'll put it up on screen, but it'd be like that. You know, I was gonna look at the housing market, but honestly, what's the point? I think we've got some bigger fish to fry here. I mean, we still don't understand how Skyrim even works. I mean, we did discuss the farmers, and we came to the conclusion that they'd be living pretty okay, comfortably, I'd say. But what about the rest of the population? How does Skyrim as a nation function? To answer this, we'll need time, and I need to conduct a full economic breakdown of Skyrim and every industry within it, as well as looking at a comprehensive list of items that are imported into or exported out of Skyrim. This will obviously take a while and be a much longer video than this one or part 1. But don't worry, viewer, in the meantime, I've been thinking of conducting a little experiment. Back in part 1, I mentioned the Elder Scrolls Cookbook, which was officially distributed by Bethesda. But I completely forgot about the fact that within this book is a recipe for sweet rolls. Since I've already uploaded that video, I've gotten a bunch of comments suggesting that the Dragonborn is just a completely terrible baker and wastes basically all of the ingredients while baking a sweet roll, and so it's just inefficient. To verify how true this is, I could just go out and buy the ingredients we needed for a sweet roll in the same quantity as the Dragonborn does. So yes, that means a whole bag of flour, and see how many sweet rolls I can make out of that. So if you'd be interested in seeing that, then please let me know down in the comments. Subscribe. Next 2 videos are going to be hopefully pretty cool and more interesting. I hope. I don't know. We'll see. Until next time.